All right. Been a wild couple weeks, but we are back in session. Just want to do a quick rundown. This is the haul that I brought back worth of containers from Say Bonsai 2025. Had a great time down in New Orleans area at Underhill Bonsai. They put on a great show, great workshops, great people down there. Had a really good time. Looking forward to next year as well. And we heard that they're going to be hosting the ABS convention in 2027. So we'll be back down there next year, the year after. It's going to be great. So I wanted to go through a couple of the ceramics I was able to pick up down there. Not quite a big fun reveal, but really get to showcase some work from some stellar artists. This is from Waldo Street Pottery. Really great classic non-bond style, right? Round, but you got to have the little dimple in it for imperfections, right? A great little pine. It's thin enough you could put something tall and slender in it, or you could put something just nice standard size. Classic, very classic shape. A little bit of texture as you get the light plays off of it a little bit. Really, really nice. Got your classic here. Yeah, that's Waldo Street Pottery in Atlanta. Eli Aikens down there does some great work. This is not the last you'll see of his stuff in this magical thing. Okay, we'll do this next. This is a great little round pot. Not quite a drum because it angles on the side a bit. You can see that there. Really good intricacies with the play. You can tell the kiln firing, you get some dark spots, which are really, really nice. Almost looks glazed because of how it's fired, but it's definitely not glazed. It doesn't do a stamp. It's from, what's it called? Trees and Clay. I met them in Houston last year, but they're in the, I believe, Austin area, maybe closer to Dallas, but I can't recall at the moment. Really, really quality work. Nice little cutout for the feet, or you can have it straightforward. If you have a heavier tree, keep that there. If you have a lighter tree, the feet and the use of the feet to insinuate some of the femininity or masculinity in the composition can be used. So just like there's a front of a tree, there's always a front of a pot as well, depending on the look you're going for, right? Especially with something like this. Let's jump back to Eli real quick because the rest are all from the same guy as well. Again, Waldo Street, great work. It's a little deeper than I normally like, but look at the coloration on that. It looks more green in the camera, but it's almost a blue. It's like the Pacific Ocean. It's a fantastic color on here. From a dark, it's more brown, but it's going to look black. That's probably the best view of it. Catching the light just like that, right in that area. And that's kind of the color that it is throughout the whole thing. Really intricate feet, right? If that were a straight flat, even with the wall foot, it would make it such a heavy pot. But just making those little indentations lightens it up just enough to make it a little more interesting, a little more exciting, something else to look at. So that's something where maybe you have the foot forward, but that's going to make it look uneven if it's a thicker tree. So having it with a foot on either side is going to look great. If I had a really sturdy azalea, it's going right into this pot because any color bloom is going to look great with this greenish blue hue here and that transition from the dark into the light of the clay. Again, that's another Eli Aikens Waldo Street Pottery ceramic there. The rest of these are all from Byron Myrick. I only had these two little ones And the wife's like, you have to get something in this glaze, this kind of sea foam. And then this is just a classic shape. And I had a few ideas. And I love the glaze. I have a larger one, 7-gallon Sharps Pygmy went in that one. It's on the Maples, kind of everything about Maples stream that we did in the fall-ish time. Maybe it was last summer even. I can't remember now. But it's in there. So I had these two little guys. And I said, oh, you have to get one that color. And there was a round one, but I thought this Moco shape will be great. We'll look at all that. Look at this thing. It is just the epitome of refinement. The lip, the speckle in their Uribe glaze, classic stamp from Byron right there. It is just, I mean, it's smooth as can be. It's a beautiful pot. Very, very fine craftsmanship. I don't know if a tree will ever go in this. I like it that much that it's just going to always be a pot that I keep on the shelf, perhaps. This is just about the same. Really intricate shape, unique shape. Usually I don't like inset lips on pots because it makes it tough to repot. But look at the indentation, the lines. Just really, really nice. And a dark glaze is unique. This, I still, even though it's glazed, still wouldn't have a problem putting an evergreen in this, right? No problem with such a dark glaze like that. Really, really great pot. Through this one, I love this like muted kind of gold color. It's a really, really nice with some of the flecks that get into that glaze as it's being fired. Again, breaks up the heaviness of the ceramic wall with the lip and the ring, and incorporates the feet, but gives them a little bit of height there. It's a great standard pot. Any tree is going to look good in it. Maybe you could get away with a forest that's a little thick for that, but maybe you get away with it if you have thick enough trees, or if it's just right. But I mean, this is just a solid ceramic for any standard tree. And the color looks great in the spring because it's not so bright that it distracts from any spring color. It's also good in the fall because it'll give you that insinuation of the falling leaves, right? Maybe don't put like an elm in it that's going to turn yellow, but any kind of Japanese maple hornbeam that are usually orange or red. What else? You could even go for something like a bald cypress would look nice in this, right? Because they get that like rusty red before the leaves fall, and that bright green is really going to set this off. But a really great kind of general overall run of the mill, but quality pot. Nice and oval, right? Nothing fancy, but really, really nice. Again, you get that same with this seafoam Moco container. So the Moco is the lotus shape, indents, comes around. The other one's in this glaze because my wife was like, you have to get something in that glaze. I said, okay. Excuse to get another pot, no problem for me. The other ones in this glaze were a bit thicker and oval, so it would have necessitated a certain type of tree, and I really don't get a lot of trees that thick. The reason I got this one was because it's in this glaze, but it's also a unique shape, so it's at least something that I don't have, right? Rather than just another generic oval or round pot. But the intricacies on the glaze are really nice. You can see the blue, like the cyan coming through. Again, a nice lip to break up the thickness of that wall. One thing I thought was interesting, and I haven't decided how much I like it or if I even do like it enough, but rather than the feet being on, right, the indented portion, so the classic positions here, 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 and here, they're on the edges. So you have one right in the front, both sides and then right in the back. So it kind of gives it an interesting look of imbalance. Maybe if these feet were forward a little bit, it would mitigate that if you have a foot that comes up to here. But the foot being directly forward, you really have to have a solid tree, because if you have a thinner tree and it's planted to one side or the other, it's going to look like I could tip over it in a minute. So knowing that, it's a particular tree that'll fit into this pot, but it's also fairly versatile pot because it's not an extraordinary indented shape, right? It's essentially oval, but it has a little flair to it. So a really nice pot here again by Byron Myrick. We'll fit all those back in there, and then we'll get down to the tree business. But I had to highlight some of those because that's just enjoyable. I got to put these things back in just a bit, so I hope you'll forgive me, I suppose. We're going to repot this little twin trunk. We were up at Brussels, and my son was like, I love that boxwood. I like its shape. I thought, why not? So I snagged it for him. We're going to put it in this nice little pot. It'll look great. So I did this whole hip hip hooray for the final repot of the year. And then, wouldn't you know it, another tree showed up. But this thing will be no problem at all to repot. Nice and quick. But it'll give us a chance to recap. As always, start at the top. We'll adjust that. Start at the top. Work our way down. I mean, this is no problem. It's full of roots, so I'm not like searching for anything as far as where does the tree actually start. But I do want to expose as much of that nabari or base flare as I can. So maybe the roots have even grown up back into where the soil is, covering up some of that base flare. So we're going to get in there and see what we can do. Just exploring this little Harlan's boxwood. It's a Taiwanese boxwood grown for their bark. I think after we get this through this repot, I've got a couple trees that are in need of a few things. It's just going to be a smattering of things that need to kind of get done since I've been gone for so long. And been doing most of my prep work has been getting ready for shows and everything. So it'll be nice to finally get to work on some of my trees. I have done the repotting for them, but it'll be nice. Okay, that's most of that. We're going to come in. Few thick roots in there. Tease those out. And we'll make sure we get the front of the tree set up right. I mean, maybe there's a long branch we need to take off there. I wasn't planning on taking any branches off, but there's a few long, kind of outlandish ones. We'll make the tree nice as soon as it fits in the pot. But I'm not going to go in and do like branch selection, trim this way down as the same time we do this repot. Just a few minor selections here to make sure nothing's crazy, and then in the future we'll pull down those branches and give it a nice shape to it. But it's a nice little twin trunk. I think it'll look good in that hexagonal pot there. go. Last one. There we have it. And this is all roots. There's hardly any dirt in here at all. Soil, I should say, but the official designation of dirt versus soil is dirt is misplaced soil. So if it's in a pot, I guess technically it's misplaced. But then how do you designate something that hasn't been misplaced as far as soil goes? Half of it's been blown around the world a few times, to say the least, as far as evolutionary perspectives go. I digress. There's some really thick roots in the bottom of here. And we're making sure we prune those back as much as possible while leaving these fine feeder roots. That's the biggest issue. And not just, horticulturally, the biggest issue, making sure we get feeder roots that are actually taking nutrients to the tree. Also, these big, thick roots aesthetically are what limit us most directly in fitting trees into the pots that will help them look their best. Right? So being able to get rid of thicker roots but maintain the tree's health and vigor with feeder roots is vital to the success of bonsai as bonsai, right? As an art form and viable, healthy trees. This nice little pot, little hex here. It'll look great. The question with a hex or with any angled walled pot is, do you have the flat surface forward or do you have an angle forward? Right? The biggest thing with that is, where are the feet? This one's very evenly matched. Sometimes you'll see just 3 feet still. So you'll have maybe one on the front or 2 on the side, but it depends on where you put it. So knowing where the feet are, but if you have a flat, or if you have it on the angle, it limits the width of your pot. If you have the flat side, it expands that face of the pot, right? So it's wider. And there's the angle again, narrowed the pot. So it just depends on the overall composition that you're working on, as far as, do we need the stability of a wider pot, right? A wider face of the pot, or something narrow with the ridge pointing forward. I'm going to go, because of the canopy, with the front of the pot facing. So with the flat front. Having the angle on the front, that ridge on the front, it makes it feel a little bit narrow for the canopy, and it makes me want to shorten it up, shrink it up. But having that flat face, and right, the front's here, and these angle out, so it widens that pot. Feels like the canopy fits into that pot size a little bit better. There's the difference again. It's subtle, but it's there. So we're going to do that. So I just need to prep the pot real quick. Set the tree over here. Things are in a bit of disarray, but I think we'll be just fine. Probably angle that up just a bit more again. We're done working down in the dirt. So we'll do this quick repot. And then we will get into some pruning and some styling and everything else. go. As always, you got to make sure the pot's prepped. Gives us plenty of room for the tie down. And then soils real quick. Won't take long. I'll be right back. Here we go. Now this is a small pot, so it's going to dry out quite a bit, or I should say it's going to dry out rapidly, but I'm still going to put it in a 2-1-1 Akadama pumice lava mix. I'm using a finer grain so that I can get more soil particles in the pot. But I'm not going to put so much organic matter in the pot with it so that it's detrimental to the root growth. Sometimes people are like, it's a smaller pot. We need to make sure that it doesn't dry out. And of course, if that's what you're concerned about, then perhaps we got to have a smaller pot with organic soil. My suggestion would be use the right soil combination, the right mixture, and just put it in a little bit larger of a pot. If it doesn't look exactly right, but it's not going to die on you, that's the right pot for it, whatever keeps it alive. But as soon as, things change, you have the opportunity and the option to put it in a smaller pot. No big deal. Well, I was apprenticing. Most of the trees, when I was apprenticing at the National Bonsai Museum in Korea, most of the trees they had were actually kept in the ground. And when it was time for a show or whatnot, they'd pull them up and pot them up. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were a ton of trees in pots, but they would pull them up out of the ground and put them in their official bonsai pot that they're normally in, and then take them to whatever show that they had for it. And I was like, that's brilliant. It keeps the maintenance down for them. That's the primary function of that. We're going to make sure that the front of the tree is facing the front of the pot. And it is. So we'll tighten that down. All right, just pull out as you twist. That keeps it nice and tight. Fold it back. There we go. All right. We will get the rest of the soil in there. Chopstick it down. Do a quick watering. I hadn't watered this tree for a few days. I was thinking that I was going to get to the repot sooner, and I didn't. So, since I haven't, it's quite dry, drier than I normally like to perform a repot. You don't want it soggy, dripping everywhere, but you also don't want them dry. So, you also don't want it dry. So, I will water this one right after, but I'll be right back with a tree to mess with and wire and do some styling and things on. Right now is one of the best times for general styling of kind of anything. There's no real need to do it at this moment. Like deciduous respond well to styling right now, but the wire can bite in, so maybe you'll hold off. Pines you can, but there's other times to do it. So a lot of people are focusing on get my repots done, get my repots done, get my repots done. So the reason that now is not prime styling time in most bonsai gardens for most people is because they're so busy doing other things that there's alternative times to do that other stuff. So right now they're just repotting because there's really no other time to repot, depending on how severe the repot is. I think my son will be quite excited. Normally we do this together, but I thought this thing's got to get in that pot. We're running out of time, so hop on here and get this repot finished up. Sweep soil back in there. Sweep the top off. It's a little quick and dirty, but I think it looks just fine. There we go. Nice little tree. It looked good. All right. I'm going to do a quick water of this thing. Get that excess soil off the top for sure so that water runs into the pot. Definitely apply some moss, top dressing to this. In such a small pot, keep it in. Usually do morning sun with afternoon shade. And I'll put things like this in between other larger ones so they get kind of essentially just filtered sun. Even though boxwoods can take full sun for sure, it's in a tiny pot, so it needs that protection. So there you have it. Nice little Kingsville boxwood. Fun little tree. Be right back. There we go. Got our next little project coming up here. Nice eastern red cedar. Fun little tree. A lot of people don't mess with the eastern red cedars because they're essentially they're weeds, which no big deal, right? Whatever, we grow plenty of weeds for bonsai. Don't scoff at the weeds. Sometimes they make the best, like your privet, your bougainvillea, things like that. They're like, oh, they always grow stick straight, and there's no interest to them, and the foliage is pokey. Never had an issue with the foliage. Yes, it is pokey. And this one's been growing in this container for about 8 years now, and it's fine as any Toyogawa that I've had. Really, really nice foliage. I have an Toyogawa right next to me. I can bring you up close on these things, and I'll show you. Toyogawa has some of the finest foliage that you find with junipers. We'll get right up close, and you can see how fine it is on both of those trees. Right. So it really just depends on what you're looking to work with. I'm gonna mess with that one later too. So a lot of people are like, I don't like them because they revert to They revert to juvenile foliage with access to nutrients and with pruning, right? So you prune off pretty much anything, and it's going to revert to juvenile foliage, which is the pokey stuff. Also, if it has a lot of access to nutrients as much as it wants, it's going to grow, and it's going to produce juvenile foliage. So, not like I don't fertilize it, but if it has as much as it wants to eat, it's going to keep growing. It's going to keep producing juvenile foliage. So, limiting its access to nutrients, as far as, again, not starving it, but just being prudent about how much it actually gets to consume as far as growth hormones and nutrients go, is vital to keeping the fine foliage. Also, you're just going to have to deal with it as far as pruning goes. if you're going to have a show in the coming year, you kind of have to plan 2 years ahead, right? To say, I need this to get back to its mature foliage. I cannot be pruning this thing right before a show, right? But most of us aren't going to be doing show type stuff, at least with an Eastern red cedar. There's the front. Let me show you a little bit of the base, right? Very, very nice. I had roots stacked on top of each other. Chose the top one as a gin, a rooted gin, and then shari all the way up till it hits kind of this first set of branches. It's nice one. We'll create a pad back here. So we're just, I mean, it's been in here for 7 years, but I haven't really done anything with it. I used to let the kids practice their wiring on it. What I'm thinking is really accentuating this tall trunk. So we've got a back branch here. That's this foliage. This is a nice branch, but I think this comes down too low. I don't mind it. Again, it's okay. What I'm thinking is this goes. This becomes the termination of the silhouette. Here, when we lay out those pads, I'm going to put some wire under it so y'all aren't looking up into it, but are rather looking at it, kind of like I am. There we go. Tilt it up forward just a tad. Aha. The joys of makeshift. Oh, and it's divine. We've got that light coming in. It really bugs me more than anything else, but so be it. Now you can see the base, see the tree. I'll show you what's going on. Just starting to put on some growth. We're going to lay out those pads, flatten it out, really hammer on it this season because, again, it's going to revert back to that juvenile growth. So we're really going to hammer on it right now, get it set so that next repotting season, when we really bring it down and confine it to that bonsai ceramic, it will have had a full season to grow into its shape and develop. So we're going to kind of strip this thing down to bare bones and lay it out. I have toyed with, right, we're going to get rid of this. We're just doing it now. Let me grab my stuff. Sorry. There we go. And never just lop the whole thing off, right? When you're dealing with evergreens, never just lop the whole thing off. Always make sure you leave room for gin or deadwood, right? Make sure it's consistent with the composition, right? But you want to take off foliage there. Sorry, I just grabbed the tools that were closest rather than actually getting into my tool bag. So let me take a second, grab some legitimate tools. Oh, finally. Okay, there we go. Got some tools. Very nice. I'll set them right there. So I don't need that anymore. So we're going to go ahead and hop back here. Score the bark. We're going to make this into a gin right now. Because there wasn't foliage on this whole stretch right here, right? This was just masking the empty branch, and then it tufted out right here. So we're just going to make this into exactly what we need. It is a little bit tougher to get some of that, or to make deadwood out of these. Sometimes the bark is a little thinner, and so sometimes it's harder to separate through the plier pinching technique, but sometimes it gets in there and it works out for you. Yeah. And that's also on the case on these thicker branches. There you go. So if you have a thinner branch that you can use to separate that, then you can peel it back. Turns out half this branch is already dead. So that's another thing is if the branch is already dead, it's actually harder to make deadwood than if the branch is alive. Because if it's alive and you pinch and you tear that tissue, then voila, it comes right off. But if that branch is dead already, it just won't shed the tissue and separate like it usually does. That's a nice little tear. Maybe that'll separate for me now. There we go. That'll add a little interest. To that gin. And if you like, you can actually wire gin as well so that they'll stay. You've got that tissue memory. So you can create deadwood, then wire it and shape is where you want it to be. But we're just going to get as much separation as we can here. Again, without snapping this gin. So now it's forked rather than just being a big long stick and then interesting gin at the end. We've got a little more interest created back here because it's already separated. So that'll look nice. And then as that dies off, we'll let it die off, then we'll bleach it white like the rest with lime sulfur. Just paint it on with like a little paintbrush. So there is some wire still on this tree. So I'm going to see, it's not really cutting in, which is good. If I find a spot where it is, I'll unwire it. But what we're really going to do is look to get these pads set. So I may make some adjustments because as things get moved around, especially in the winter, in and out of the greenhouse, just walking around trying to water in the greenhouse while it's full during the winter, things can get bumped or snagged and moved. So we're just going to make sure this is all cleaned up. I really want to accentuate the height on this tree, especially with such a slender trunk. There's not a lot of taper, but there is some. It goes from about 2 inches at the, just above the nabari. There's a nice transition of taper here. There we go. Nice transition of taper here and another one here. And then of course where it was lopped off, you can see the flat cut right there into this as the trunk line. And that'll open it up as we move some of these branches. But really looking to kind of transform this tree into an iteration of what it's going to be so that next year it can go into a bonsai pot. So we'll see what we're playing with. Looking to get rid of all of this here, right? Maybe we keep this, but this definitely has to go, right? This is young. This doesn't show age to me. But at the same time, man, it just looks like a mop, doesn't it? I can't imagine. Let me fiddle with the branching here. These have kind of gotten pushed onto the same plane. So let me look at the branching just a little bit on this side as we think about, is this something where we want to keep kind of a traditional design, or maybe we just keep a few of these branches and really hit hard on that literati style, right? The long, slender trunk with just a bit of branching. And it's not just sometimes literati or windswept. Some of the more dramatic designs are like, well, I have nothing else to do with this tree, so it might as well be fill in the blank, right? That's definitely not what this is. For a while, I was just using this tree for my kids to practice wiring on. But about 3 years into having the tree, I thought, that's not that bad of a trunk. Really like the roots and the root flare, especially having a ginned root with living roots underneath really accentuated the situationality of the tree in nature. And so I thought maybe we can make something out of this. Maybe we can make something out of this. We'll see. I'm going to be looking at the front for just a second. Probably don't need those pliers very much anymore. And then we will move this branch down. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to hop in the comments or suggestions as far as do we get rid of this right here. But the idea is we're going to make this as close to a finished product as possible for it to go into a pot next year. So it's going to look rather scarce, but I'm thinking it's going to turn out to be not that bad. It's like my first experimentation with an Eastern Red Cedar. Since then, I've had a handful more because I really like them. They're very pleasant to work with. They're malleable. It's a juniper. It's not a true cedar, of course. It's a juniper, Juniperus virginiana, and so a nice native species that really gets a bad rap, partly because of how prevalent they are, partly because they're pokey, partly because some people are persnickety about, oh well, it's not a Japanese tree. The only good junipers are shimpaku, and I only use kishu, or I only use this or that, Itoyagawa or whatnot. But as nice as the Itoyagawa are, this mature foliage is just as nice. I'd put it up against any of those. So what we're really going to start to see, and you can see it here, is the thinning down of these pads and just really flattening them out, keeping any of that fan shape, getting rid of the fluff. Really want to make sure that we accentuate that style of the literati. Just showing the intensity of the wind or the altitude, the intensity of the environment in general. But this thing has been like hanging on to dear life for a very long time. That's the goal. And in that, to make this appear larger and hence thus older, we need to have more negative space between the pads. So this bushiness tells a different story than this slender trunk with the shari on it, right? This is vigorous and excited and has no lack of nutrients. right? That's the story that all this foliage tells. And so with a slender trunk, it's like, oh, that's just a short tree, not that's an ancient tree that's been miniaturized. So the goal here is to really slim down, not have big billowing pads. Narrow, thin, sparse pads are really going to tell that story. Really going to sell it on that's what this tree's been through. I see it now. You want to be aware while you're thinning things out like this, not to remove all of the growing tips. Remove all the growing tips, the tree's gonna be like, fine, I give up, whatever. But I'm making sure that I'm getting in there to separate these pads. There we go. There we are. See how narrow these are now? A few of them still look a little fluffy. That one's just the orientation's off. But really narrow. Really trying to break down none of this balled up stuff. Everything is out there. Make sure, as always, you put movement towards the back of the branch as well. Because if you just wire it and put it the direction you want it, then you're going to get to the end and everything's going to be the same length, and then you have to wiggle it and snake it at the end. So one easy trick to remember is wherever you want that foliar pad to end up, move it the opposite way first. So coming back to the trunk, I'm going to move this. If I want the pad on the left, I'm going to move the initial portion of the branch to the right and then swing it back out and put other movement into it. But if I move this out to the left right away from here, it's going to move to the left, and then I got to put all the movement out here, and then it's going to end up the same direction. So initially just move away from where you want that to end up. So then as you put movement into it, it'll naturally shorten that branch, and it'll have more interesting and exciting movement as you go along. Ouch. We're going to move that over just a little bit so we can see where we're going. So this branch here is a lot of foliage. It's almost as much as whatever we left here. The biggest thing is this clump right here. First of all, it blocks your line of sight on the trunk, but not too bad. I don't think we need to remove the whole thing, but we do need to trim it down. So what we're going to do, rather than kind of trimming each little one, we're going to look for a spot where we can prune back to. We're just going to shorten up that entire branch and maybe get some directionality in there. So we're going to prune it back to something that's already growing the direction we want it to, so that we don't have to wire every little bit of that tree as we go in. This one also has major growth coming out this direction. I think we're going to cut back here. Yep. And then we're just going to take this right back to that one, because all that balled up growth was right at the end. So I'm going to thin that out. But yeah, that directional pruning, especially on deciduous, is going to save your life. Whichever way it's already facing, cut it back to let it grow that way. And if it still needs some thinning, we can still thin it out. Take these off here. So it's okay if we cover up the trunk a little bit. The idea is the thicker the trunk, the more of the trunk you can cover, right? So this is a very slender trunk, so we don't want a big branch like this sitting right here. You can't see where the trunk goes, the tree's lost. But we can have something like this up here, teasing us just a little bit, saying like, ooh, you see the trunk, it's in there somewhere. You know it's there. You can follow one side or the other, right, as the line ascends, but don't get lost, right? Yep, this is going. All righty. You can see what I mean by laying out the branch pads. It's kind of funky here because they were on top of each other. There's depth to that, see? Normally you don't want a big U shape, but because we were trying to get the height, right, this way it's not that. But you've got the development of pads right there. This is all new growth on this one. You can see, move it and just get that fan shape as best you can. Yeah, it's coming off. I want to dull that blade on that. If you liked it, sorry. I think I want to get rid of this almost completely, if not completely. It's like this one back here, it might be dried out. Yes, it's dried out enough. I'll show you what you do after the deadwood is dried and how to make it break naturally. You can see how this one's jagged and this one just looks like a big stump that got cut off, because that's what it is. I'll show you in just a second after we make this gin. Some water out, yes. There's a little wire left on there, so let's get rid of that. Generally say, even if you're going to take something off in a year or so, if you don't have enough trees, just wire it out. Just practice that wiring. when I was learning, first starting out bonsai, I was in grad school, and frankly couldn't afford very many trees. So I'd go to Home Depot and get a juniper, and every branch that I cut off, I would put in the vise and just wire it and unwire it and wire it and unwire it and wire it, just to get that muscle memory, just to do it over and over and over and over again. Because I couldn't do it on trees. Because I'd get like, once you wire the tree, it's done. And you have to sit and you wait. And so I get like one juniper, any branches I removed, or I'd remove one big branch and just have lots to practice on. But I'd put it in that vice grip on the table. I would just wire and unwire and wire and unwire. Okay. This little stringy stuff here, it doesn't really fit with the tree. I don't mind leaving it for now, but it'll probably get snapped off. So what happens after you create a gin, you let it dry, and then you get to come in here and you grab your pliers and you break it naturally, right? That's what's going to happen in nature, is it dies out, something happens, and it breaks off. Generally, pines you grab and you pull down, firs as well, because they usually are weighed down with snow. And so when you pull down, that bottom's likely to crack off, and you keep the sharp, splintered, rounded top and fractured bottom. Junipers are twisted and gnarled by the wind, so often you'll grab them and you'll just do that twisting motion and see what falls off and rips off and tears, and you get this frayed edge, which looks really good and natural. But honestly, just look at dead branches and around where you are and see what they look like. And again, we don't want just a nub and then a frayed end. We want to be twisting this and pulling it a little and everything till it like splays all the way back. It's a composition, right? Now it looks like something. Here, let's pull you in a little closer. Right? Now it's starting to take that shape, right? And you can see the difference between this here, the deadwood here, right? And even this one, right? It's thin, it's ragged. Try not to make anybody sick as much as possible. All right. So still checking out the front there, and just keep doing it till it fractures in a way that looks good. There we go. But that's natural deadwood. I'm gonna cut off some of the ends there, or I'll peel them off so that I don't undo what I just did. That one's right up against the bark, so that one's gonna go. It's all frayed back there. Okay, so now you have, that looks good, right? You can see it. Natural deadwood there. And we'll do that with all these once they die. Twist them up, make them all gnarly. So we're moving on up the tree. This branch is done. Let's do this back branch. Again, we want thin. Back branch is there to give us some depth to it, so we don't just see right past that thin trunk. We're going to pull this over to get some foliage on both sides of that trunk. It'll look really nice. So we'll move that way. Grab some wire. That is terrible wire. right next to me. And of course it's gone. Okay, anyway, this will do. So I was kind of just showing the base off, but this is how the tree is going to stand this direction. So now you can see the layers of those pads right here. As much negative space as we can give them so that we can draw on that height of the tree. It's going to make it look taller. There's more space in between all those branches. And you can see already this side versus the other side, right? I'm going to spin this around, get a good look. This back branch here. Get some movement into those branches, see which way's up, thin them out, make sure it looks good. We're looking for this much foliage on each branch throughout the rest of the tree. Because if I left it like this, chances of this dying off are much higher. Because if these are producing energy, the tree's going to say, "Oh, you're doing good stuff for me. You're not doing anything for me. I'm not going to send you any more energy." Here it is. Found the wire. Good. Ha. Wire saves the day. Okay. So there's no other branch to wire this to, so I'm going to wire it to itself. Just go around the trunk. There's really nowhere to see this from, unfortunately. But the important thing with wiring is not to wrap it, but to pull it and then push it and then pull it up, and pull it towards you and move around the tree, because the pulling keeps it snug against the branch. Whereas if you wrap it, you'll get a lot of spaces between your wire and your branch, and the wire won't hold. Or when you bend it, it'll just bend the wire and it won't actually bend the branch. So then we're going to come around the same side and do the same maneuver. Same rotation. Now we can use a thinner wire because we're using essentially two wires on the same branch. That will allow us to put some movement here. We're going to lay this down how we want it now. And again, we want to make sure that we're getting some green on both sides. This is probably going to be really short. Maybe I should take it off now to match this, because it feels silly to have it all the way out, but especially with that downward movement. Maybe that's what's distracting. Is that better? Oh, much better. It was that circle that I was making right there. That was what was distracting me. Okay. So the apex, as you can tell, as bushy as these are, there's a lot more foliage going on up here, a lot more growth because they're apically dominant. This is giving me the most energy because it's closer to the sun. It's reaching for the sun. Nothing's going to shade this out. I need to grow, grow, grow faster than anything else around me. So I put all the energy up to the top. I may not prune this back branch down as much as I'm going to prune out the rest of the tree. Chances are, because this isn't covered up by any other foliage, it will still get as much energy from the tree as it needs to grow because it's giving a lot back to the tree. But if I prune this perhaps this small or that lightly, prune it heavily to have that light of foliage on it, it could be detrimental to the tree in the long run. So I'm going to be a little more light-handed on the tree. A little gentler to this region. Still keep those thin branch profile rather than a puffy one. But I may not get rid of everything that I want to get rid of. These other ones. Because I've wired these all once before, at least the primary branching, I set up the foliage for growth and where I would want it in the future. So a lot of these aren't going to need adjustments vertically or horizontally. It'll just be getting movement into those branches, which is nice. So I can come in here and clean this out knowing that I'm not going to be flipping things up on their head because I've already done that essentially by doing the primary branch placement in a way that put the buds somewhere where they grow advantageously for the tree. I'm going to get rid of, do I want that one instead of this one? That's one of those things where I don't need to make that decision now because I don't want to take so much off this branch, this portion of the tree. So we're going to let it sit for now. And we'll make that decision when we need to. Essentially, I've got 5 branches on here. So let's get a little bit of wire. Have fun with this. Let's see what we actually need. Okay. I'm doing this. If we're looking at the tree, I don't want to wire branches that are across from each other together. I want to wire branches on the same side because if they're across from each other and I move one, it's going to wiggle the other side. But if they're wrapped around the main branch or the trunk and I move this one's not going to move because there's strength in wrapping the trunk. So I'm going to come in here and pair these together. Go. Snagged on a little branch down below. A little gin. again, we just make sure that we lay things down as horizontal as possible and put some movement into that tree. Again, I want this portion of the branch over here, so I'm going to move it this direction first, right? Make an acute angle, and then put in whatever movement is needed to make it interesting. And don't forget, it needs to be photosynthetically efficient, right? You don't want to be stacking your branches right on top of each other. Give a little space, horizontally or vertically. As you pull it up, it'll naturally kind of shorten it a little bit. So that's two ways to create branch pads. You can make larger, thicker pads by a single degree of separation, moving horizontal or vertical. So the deciduous model is a little bit billowed, so you bring it up to separate. Usually if you want a thicker pad with a conifer or a deciduous as well, you just broaden out the horizontal plane. If you want to create negative space in there, if you want airiness, if you want a little more feminine design, less strength in the branching and the foliar mass of that tree, you do both degrees of separation. So pull it horizontal and then vertical. And so you get, right, separate pads. I got one more wire to place here. A little distracted when I was talking about that, but back on track here. I think this one I'm going to leave alone. It's in a nice spot. It could come down a bit, but it's not worth wiring out. Although I may do it just to do it, because that's why we're here, to get that done. To come around the other direction on that one. If you're wiring multiple wires in a single position, single spot, get them close together, not straggled apart, spun all over the place, wrapped up in all different directions. Get them tight together, close. There shouldn't be light or wood in between your two pieces of wire that are going along and fall in the same branch. The same rules that you use for wiring a single wire to a branch, you should use for the other wire as well. Same angle, same spacing, no gaps. Right? That goes for things, multiple wires next to each other as well as a single wire against a branch. So once we get up to the apex, the upper branching, there'll probably be more pruning than wiring, because I can already see that there's pads there and then all the new growth has gone straight up. So it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. Maybe we do need that to go down. All right, fine. I'll be diligent, making sure that I wire everything out as necessary. Much better. So the slight adjustments can really make a big difference. Essentially, if I look through the back of the tree, I should be able to do proper wiring as well, because it's a mirror up front, but you never know. One thing you want to make sure when you're doing the back is not pulling things too far away, straight back out of the tree, because then the viewer doesn't know where to stop their eye from going in the backward movement. So you kind of it just grows away and they lose the tree. So being able to stop that backward growth and kind of bringing it back around to make sure you're engaging the viewer is important. And it doesn't mean bringing things forward, of course, but just don't wire it out the back like you do out the sides. Okay, so now these are there. One thing we want to make sure we do or don't do is keep a flat line back here. So we're going to make sure we drop this one down just a bit lower so that we're not on the same plane over here. See, we're here, now we're not here, right? We don't want a straight line across the back on the same plane. We want to make sure that they are distinct and separate. So we'll get rid of that straggler. Make sure, yes, we have ample room between those two foliar pads for development. We are good to go. So now that that's set, I'm going to bring these in here. Do the same thing. Make sure, again, that we're not sitting on top of the other branches and that we're pulling apart those buds for photosynthetic efficiency and fanning out that branch shape and structure. When I'm bending this, you'll see my left hand pinches that wire, because on branches this thin, if I just move this one, it's going to move the whole thing. So I'm making sure that I'm controlling how much of that branch is allowed to move. By the way, I know I'm throwing away every little piece, but if you've ever stepped on dead juniper foliage, it's highly unpleasant. So I'm being meticulous about tossing the dead stuff, or the pruned stuff. Okay, great. There we have it. Okay, there we go. That's from the front. See, it's lovely. Okay, let me make sure you have the right. There's the front, right? You've got the ginned root and the shari going up this side, and then first branch, left side extends to here, right side to here, right? Asymmetrical. And you move over to this next branch, right? You have the length here all the way out. And this is even farther away from the trunk than this one. See that? Right? Asymmetry all the time. Everything's asymmetrical. Sets up that background. It's very, very nice. Okay. Now we got to figure out how to address the shrubiness. All right. We're going to go through and do a little bit of cleaning on this. We're going to cut back, prune back to good taper, right? From thick to thin. Any obvious vertical branches that don't need to be there, we're going to get rid of. And then we're going to wire out just like we did the others. But this portion really needs to be done properly because we essentially have two branches, right? The continuation of the trunk and then one branch, creating this whole canopy. All of that foliage is coming from two spots. But the biggest question is, right, If you can see right here, yep, right there, it forks. Do we keep the apex up here and bring this down? Or do we just shorten this? Right? Do we condense this canopy so much that it just comes here? Right? So there's another fork right where my finger is. You might be able to see it, might not. But these two would be the apex, this one, and this one. And this would come down, right, to form a branch. So again, we have to keep in mind what is cohesive with the rest of the tree. We want to do something really crazy and predominantly lazy. We cut off all of this, we cut off the rest of that, and this is the whole tree. Right? But it'd be a disservice to a tree like this because you actually get really good taper. There's a good transition of taper here, another one here, and then another one here. So to go from a huge tree like this to, whoops, there's one branch, and it's a dramatic taper, it wouldn't be using the material to its fullest. I do want to get rid of that, so we're going to get rid of this guy here. It's kind of just growing straight down and scraggly. We'll get rid of that one. Which means rather than cut those vertical ones off, we may want to lay them down. But you'll notice, right, if we're at the front, we got to lay these down. That silhouette terminus here and here is the same. It forms a straight line. It's not asymmetrical. That's no good, right? Top either needs to stick out farther or be condensed back in. So we're looking for where can we condense that into? Where do we pull that back to? And it may be wiring it out and then pruning back to where it's going to not be coterminous with the other one. But we just have to see how all that works out. It looks with all the growth from last year, there's going to be significantly more wiring needed up here than there was on these others. Okay, this one, done. Bring that back. Cuts for transition of taper. That's kind of nice. We'll see what we can do with that. There's some really good back budding up here, but we can't go to it just yet, unfortunately. That would be stripping this tree pretty bare. So we will have to wait and see where that wire leads us. But we'll get there. It'll get there. It's a nice tree. It's turning into something. You know what? We're getting rid of this whole thing right there. Now we're turning it into something exciting. This is fanned up. We want to lay it down that way. That's all that needs is to be laid down. Same thing here. We're not going to wire this though. There's no lignification. We're going to let that be. Next year we'll pull that down, flatten it out. We want that to maintain as much of its strength and vigor as we can. Nice little gin right there. And that one cut at an angle so it narrows down. It should twist off real nice as it dries. Keep it about that size. It'll be a good gin to have accenting and mirroring the rest of these. This one feels really silly now as it's so far out there, right? Really interesting. Okay. The apex I like. We're going to leave the length on these till we get it wired, and we can manipulate it where we want and then prune back to where we need. We'll see how that shapes up. But I'm thinking we're going to leave it for now. Still not 100% decided on that, but we'll see. Get rid of that too. There we go. That's better. Closer internodes back here. So I cut a long piece with foliage at the end, back to where there's two branches closer together that occupy pretty much the same space. Okay. Those are sticking. It's bugging me. Okay. There we go. That'll help me sleep better tonight. All right. Now we got to figure out. Just keep moving from the bottom up. Wire what you need to wire. And build the tree. Just creating another gem here. So cut that one off. All right, there we go. Those little flourishes of gin on the tree are really going to highlight the cohesion of the composition. It's not, oh yeah, there's a bunch of deadwood down here, and then, oh, now we have a nice top. It's like, ooh, there's a little bit there, a little bit there. And it really pops, especially once you paint them white. And with the lime sulfur, it really stands out. The stump cut, by the way, the shear cut, we're going to turn that into a shari as well. Coming down this side, maybe, and just fracture that top. Come in, pull it apart, and give it, essentially with we did with the deadwood, and fray it out. We're gonna start in the back, get those taken care of. You have multiple thicknesses of branches that you're wiring together. Use the wire that is the thickness that's going to hold the tree, or the thickest branch on the tree. You may have to be a little more gentle with the thinner branch, but it's better than having to double or triple wire up something. Or worse, not doing that because it kind of holds, and then you find out later that the branch just went back to where it wanted to anyway, because the wire wasn't strong enough to hold it where you wanted it. Time. Oh man, This really does take kind of the longest time thinking through a full design on a tree. Narrating it takes a little bit more time, but honestly, it's just, for me, it's going through every possibility. Some people see what they want in it sooner. It's just good vision, I suppose, or at least being assertive and knowing what you want out of a tree. And also, not just what you want, but what the tree offers you. Sometimes I have a tough time deciding, is that the best option or not, kind of thing. So one thing we want to watch here with this branch is when we pull that down, we don't want it to form a flat line with anything over here, right? We're playing with this back here, this line here. We got to really be careful about not making a straight line anywhere. So we're shooting for this sweet spot right there. You're looking at this one. Don't worry about that one. There's another way to make multiple pads, especially with junipers, is you find one, then you wire out to a branch, and then you do a downward motion, and then you bring it back out again, and you remove what's in between those, and you'll create a pad here and a pad here. That's what I'm doing here. Make sure, and we've set that up. If we go straight across, it's right in that gap that we wanted. There are tops and bottoms to foliage as well. So as you're spinning these around and contorting these branches, remember, if the bottom is up, it's going to get sunburned. So be aware that you're rotating to a proper degree, that you're going to keep the up. The one I dropped earlier. I don't want to forget it. There it is. We also want to look at this from every angle because we don't want to create straight lines coming out of this from one side or the other. So you have to be very wary of the formation of straight lines as you make these pads. So you look at it from one side and it'll be all squiggly, but then you spin it around back to the front and it's like, oh, that just goes straight across and straight out. And I did nothing useful with all that movement that I put into that branch. And that one doesn't need wire. Drop this one. Initial movement. Q angle. Bring it down. This one's really, really vigorous grower. So we're going to make sure we contain all of that growth here. Branches sticking out all sorts of directions. Go. See if we can get away with that. Much better. So this branch is really heavy. Again, we can get rid of the foliage, but the branch itself is very thick. This one would be able to come down and take its spot. We have bifurcation here, right? We go from 2 here, and then very quickly this one goes from 2 to 4. Back here, this one goes from 2. Again, well, 2 to 2, but it goes from single to double to 4 very quickly. So that tight succession, if we take this whole thing off, it's just one long branch till we get all the way out here. Right? That's the difficulty. So what I'm thinking is definitely have to keep this branch to accentuate the bifurcation there. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Just something we have to maneuver through. We're going to need a sizable wire to move those 2 branches, but I think we can get them exactly in the spots that we want, which will be great. That wire's a little big. This one should be just right. Look at that, the right length. There we go. Get up here. Some of that back budding's right in that area. Really want to make sure that I don't pull that off while I'm applying this wire. So far, so good. In the wrong direction on that one. There we go. Complete the other wire. Remember, if we want them this direction, got to move it against where we want it first, and then come back and get that movement back to the direction that we really want it to go, where we want that foliar pad to end up. Twist as you bend. There we go. This one down. Forward a bit. And the key here with this one is not to be the same terminal point as the other. So anywhere we can shorten it, make sure you shorten it up. Leave room for some verticality in the pads. Just remember now, every time we're doing another branch, we don't want to make a straight line here with this one. This one needs to be on a different plane from that one. Just always thinking in planes. We got to make sure we set it up to where the branches will be able to develop without running over each other. Take that off there. And make sure you leave enough that it's going to draw those nutrients through. The tree's not just going to kill that branch off because of a lack of photosynthesis. I don't like that branch there at all. Good. Okay. It's easy. Okay, there we go. I'm going to wire these two. This one just needs a bit of pruning. It's going to look quite a bit thicker than the others. But I'm not too worried about that right now. It's very young. The only tips showing growth are ones that I definitely don't want to prune off. So we're going to leave them. It's a little fuller than the others, but once these come down, I think it'll work out just right. It's fairly angular either way. Okay. Good. Now we need that thinnest wire here that we've got. There we go. The wire was giving me fits there for a second, trying to get around that intricate portion of the tree where the branches emerged. I think we got it. I should hold it. Well, again, with all this loose foliage here, I'm not wrapping as tight, just to kind of wrap around there so I can give it some general direction. Nothing crazy, just a loop-de-loo here or there. Give it some space to grow for sure. Make sure front is facing forward. So we've got nice and low back here. His back branch elevates to a little higher. This one's up a little bit so that you can see the back branch. We're going to pull these in to kind of cap that, right? We want to embrace the viewer, right? So they can see the whole front. As you get higher into the canopy, you want to condense that so it doesn't just disappear. But we want to encapsulate, right, the main trunk of the tree. It's not as intense, especially in, a more formal, upright, sparse, elegant tree. Obviously, if you're looking at a big masculine pine with, here's the trunk, here's all the foliage, all you see is green in the trunk. Great. This, you're going to see a lot more negative space, but you still want to have those ideas. Those back branches come down just a bit. And they slowly encapsulate, right? Just up a little bit. The ones in front are a little bit higher, the peak, right? So you get your pad, then it drops down in the back, but stays up a little bit in the front. So we've got up in the front, but not higher than anything else. It'll peak in the center as that pad develops. And then we want to make sure that the viewer knows exactly where to look at this tree when they come to see it. There's no questions about, hey, what am I looking at here? That's the artistic portion of it, right? It needs to be some sort of emotive response. Someone looks at your tree and loves it, great. If they look at your tree and hate it, who cares? They look at your tree and say, oh, yeah, whatever, next. And they don't remember it. It didn't give them what they wanted as far as art is concerned. We want to make sure that we move this in ways that's not going to terminate the same. It's going to look very, very close as far as the same termination point. It's not quite there. We can prune some back off of it. I know in the camera it probably looks the same from what I saw, but it's not quite the same. And what's going to happen is as it grows, we'll manage this top growth and let that bottom growth run a little bit and make sure that we keep it in check. There's that. There's that. There's that. Okay. It's not quite as clean as this other side. The branches aren't as well developed, to be honest. And so part of that is maintaining a semblance of aesthetic with the less developed portion of the tree. We can clean it up though, as we should. Keep it from being all poofy. All right, that's the goal. There we go. Now we have a better view of those branches not ending at the same point. We've got about a ½ inch of distance between two of those. This one is also interfering, right? But we have to have the growth here for this branch to be viable. If we prune any of that off, we may say, forget it. It's the only thing there keeping this portion alive. I'm not going to touch that. It's vital to the tree. You can see now how this tree is taking shape with its age. Nice, push this direction. It comes back, right? Balance, asymmetrical in verticality and in the horizontal plane. Same here, right? We push farther this way. This counterbalance, right? For some reason, the tree is leaning this way. That root back there, don't forget that root is holding on here. But I don't know if it's wind. I don't know what it is. The trunk's coming this way. It's the sun pulling it that way, right? So these branches now, imagine maybe the rest of the forest is on that other side. This doesn't look like a forested tree, though. Maybe it's on the coastline, right? And so the wind is always coming from the same direction, but there's a cliff right here. And so the roots have to anchor to this side. And this tree's just gently leaned up here. Big, strong tree pulling this direction. Most of the directionality is this way. With that in mind, which way do we take the apex? If we take it back this way, kind of goes against the flow of the tree. Is that good? Is that what we want? Do we need something that goes against the flow? Or do we need something that resembles and is cohesive with the elegance of the tree? Everything's going this way. It's a very subtle tree. So to have something very dynamic as the apex turning back the other way would go against every subtlety that the tree is showing us. So I'm thinking we got to be inclined to bring the apex back this direction as well. We'll see how severely we do that. I'm kind of inclined to get rid of this branch as well because it's going to pull down and stack up right there on top of those. We'll see what... Yep, it's got to go. As always, gin it. Go. Okay. Give us a little break. Foliage. There's enough here on top to form a back branch in the canopy. That was the other option, was to bring it over. But by the time we actually brought it over, it would have snaked around so much because the foliage was all at the end. It would have snaked around so much that we wouldn't have really... It would have started out here and would have had to turn it all the way in there. I'm thinking we bring this down. This will form the apex here. This will be the back and the counter branch to the canopy. Those will form that lower portion. Maybe bring it down just a little bit, but I really like how much you can see that. So let's get, where's our big wire again? Let's get our thicker wire. Put some movement into this thing. Form this apex, and that'll be that. So now it looks really silly without this big fluff here. There's a lot of foliage still in that area compared to the others. But I think what we're getting is that shadow. See, I like how this back foliage really highlights this gin here. Really, really nice. We're getting some shadow, so you're not seeing as much foliage as is actually there. But as far as these two are concerned, this is up higher, so it's catching all the light, and you're getting a lot of reflective, so it looks like there's a lot there. Let's see what we can do here. Remember, this portion of the tree is going to get the most energy coming out of here because it's apically dominant. So we're going to have to be, it's good because it's going to recover whatever foliage it needs. But also you got to keep it in check, because if this really takes off, nothing else gets the energy that it needs. You got to do some post-flush pruning on it for sure. Also keep an eye on that wire for bite in, especially in areas where you're going to be able to see the whole tree. Conifers, it doesn't matter as much because they develop a good bark, but you got to be aware at least of what's going on with the wire. And different parts may bite in sooner. Again, the apex is going to be pushing a lot of energy, so it may bite in sooner up here than it does in the rest of the tree. That's fine. I mean, you don't want to have your hands on every tree all the time, because it's not practical. But if you got to come in and de-wire twice, it's better than losing a really good branch because you didn't want to de-wire and so you just left it. We got to get this. Let me see real quick. That's all our back branching. All right, so we got to cover the back. We got to cover the back and this left side. This is going to form the apex. We got to bring that movement to the left. We're going to need this. I know it's annoying right now, or at least it's annoying to me, but we're going to need that for sure. Man, you go through the winter and it feels like you haven't wired a tree and styled a tree in forever. It might look like it too, if you're not careful. That's going to go that direction. Yeah, right. Separate those pads. Yeah, wait. Okay. A little bit of removal. Not much, just a little bit. Some good adventitious budding back here as well, which is nice. Just kind of cleaning off the bottom of what will become the pads. Anything growing back in on itself. Nothing crazy. Okay, there we go. Again, try and keep it cohesive with the rest of the tree. There we have it. That'll do it. Up there. These are really just singular branches with foliage on them, so it's going to look a little bit fuller while we wait for those branches to develop. Increasingly so. These branches have been on the tree a lot longer. When I made the trunk chop, these branches emerged, so they're newer, they're younger, right? Whereas these have been there for quite some time. Pull this over. I actually like this a lot better, so I am going to remove this. Maybe not the whole thing right away. We'll take a little bit off. Let it develop into something that could be a really handy place to have a branch, especially if something dies up in this area. I'm not anticipating it will. It's an awkward spot for a branch, but it could come in handy if we need to swing it over that direction. There we go. It's just a little bit fuller of pads, but got the vertical facing up. And over here, we're just going to separate where these branches are starting to emerge, kind of lignify. Just want to separate those pads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire this down and separate those. So rather than this being one branch, I'm going to pull this one down. It's going to become two branches. Shorten that one. Shorten this one. One thing that's nice about playing with junipers is it always smells nice. Despite being highly allergic, I still enjoy it. My arms are all breaking out. You may be able to see it in there, but I'm just covered all over my. And it's not just Eastern red cedar. It's just any juniper. It's not just itchy from being poked by this thing. Even Itos, any other kind of juniper, it just, I break out all over the place. It's terrible. Okay. Play with that forever. I like it though. It's fun when something starts to turn out how it's supposed to after so many years. There's the front. Kind of liking that. That's nice too. Yeah, I'll let you decide. Look at that. So there's a front, or there's the intended front. Maybe that's better. I mean, again, that's gonna be gone. So don't worry about that. If you can see through it, more of that. I think the apex looks better from there. I think the rest of the tree looks better from there. Maybe there's somewhere right in between. somewhere right in between there. The base is definitely better from here as well versus here. And here the shari is right in the middle, whereas here it's just off to the side. So pushing the asymmetry again. Either way, it's nice. It's working out. Wire those down. We'll be done. Okay. Belabored the point long enough. That's kind of what I'm talking about, though, is you can always sit there and think, what about this versus that versus this versus that? Eventually, you got to say, well, I'm making a decision, and this is what it is. And I'm making that decision because, right? As long as you can justify it, and it's like, yeah, well, that's true. Okay. Maybe I would have done X, Y, or Z. And it's like, well, okay, well, do that to your tree. And make sure while you're doing this that you're very careful with the foliage. As far as you don't want to be tearing off stuff that you need as you're whipping wire around in there. So as haphazard as it may look like I'm being, paying very close attention to how that wire is going onto the tree. That branch that I didn't cut off is giving me fits. There we go. Got it now. Go. Finish up the wire on this thing. And this is one of those that's just barely starting to lignify. So I don't want to be wrapping it tight and have it grow into there right away. Or, because we need this branch so bad, I don't want to have it grow into it and kill the branch. So just a loose wrap around it. Again, bring it forward, then over to the side. And I'm not pruning anything off that. We want that branch to get some nice, good vigor. There we go. Here's this. Bring that to the front. Bring this down to the side. We're going to drop that down dramatically to highlight that branch pad and then bring this one down. And then we're going to separate that out into two distinct pads. There we go. Got to get it underneath that wire. There we go. I'm just cutting that one off. It's in the wrong spot. And we've got back bud right here. That's going to fill in real nice. This will come over this way. These will get thinned out eventually. Nice tight apex. Bring this down a bit more. Fill that out. That one's going to shoot back there. This one will fill in the front. Here's what we're going to do here. Apical formation is generally really tough because you have to grab one branch and make the entire apex from all these. And there's some back growth on here, which is good. We got to figure out how to get that whole thing, and it'll fill in. I'm not worried about that. But to get that insinuation of it's moving this direction while not having everything over here and this one random branch lingering over that way. So it has to be cohesive. So right now it looks a little bit scraggly. Let's get you on the front first of all. Scraggly up there. Partly because when you see the apex of a tree, you're generally used to seeing a full crown. This is throwing us off right here because it's tufted up. Let's see if we can get that bent down a little bit. Is that better? And then now it looks funky because it's split right here. That's okay. We're going to pull that over. If we pull it over now, doesn't matter. If we pull it over later, doesn't matter. Right? So that'll fill in. That'll form a nice canopy. But the important thing is we want to make sure that we have that insinuation of movement this direction. We want the apex to flow over here. Maybe we can do that and not having that pulled so far apart over that way. I know we needed that to make some back branching, but see, even that feels better already. We can bring this over, finish that up. Maybe we need another piece of wire on there. Let's see. Maybe we need to elongate that, separate those pads out a little bit more. We'll fill that in. Maybe with those two spread out, it'll fill that canopy in a little bit more. We'll be able to rest a little bit easier. Here we go. Perfect. Two little straggling pieces of wire. This one feels funny too, but I think that's key going back this direction. Yeah. Fill in some of that background. That's it. Figured it out. Okay, that's why it felt funny. I was using this branch, it's a longer branch, but it emerges earlier on the trunk than this one does. Pulling this back, and then we'll bring it forward. It's going to allow us to utilize its length to give us that motion this direction. Then, yes. All right, so now we've got the movement coming this direction. Let's separate that a little bit. Got too excited, my wire's all wrapped up in there now. Bringing it this direction. It's a little bit full, but let me see real quick. That one needs to go. That one needs to go. And that whole thing goes. We'll see. Yes. Okay. And now we're going to use this back branch, balance branch right here. So back branch, balance branch. This apex is going to come fold right over the top here. It's going to be great. So sometimes you just got to think about it a little bit longer. It's already been 2 hours. How much longer are you going to think about it? Well, sometimes you try and do something you want and the tree just doesn't fit. And it doesn't tell you the answer. It gives you all the clues. You got to figure it out. This tree's going to look so much better than trying to force it and have it grow in to something that wasn't ever going to look as good as it could have. we didn't figure this out. To do all that on a tree and then have the apex be something that was like, meh. I'd have stared at this tree for all year long, being like, how do I make it better? Now I don't have to. I can let it do its thing. It will be happy. Okay. Got that one in there. Again, we don't want it to billow. We want some flat, low. And it will grow. That's no problem. We want it to grow. We just don't want a big puffy pad up here. So make sure those the foliage is laid down horizontally. Okay. Thin this out a bit. There we go. Maybe that comes off in the future, but that's a pretty nice spot right there for now. Giving some depth to that. It's this one that's throwing us off, but that's in a good spot too. Maybe. That's better. Okay. There you have it. Thin that pad out. Thin that pad out. These will be two different pads. We're going to put this in the back. Fan this one out big time. It's the only branching we have to fill in the back. So you got to fan that thing out. We're keeping every bit of that. Every single bit of that. Remember, you want it to come down and fill in that space. Pop it back up. There we go. Good. The only thing left is this guy. And luckily, I have one little piece of wire. It was serendipitous. I had two pieces of wire sitting right there from some other project that were the right gauge to apply to bend these. Looky there. So much better than what it was before. Trying to force something that just wasn't going to ever work out right. Lay that down horizontally. I want to bring that forward. Lay it down. Bring this back to keep that pad. Make it nice and broad because we have a lot of space to take up with just those few branches. But we don't want it to go. Don't want to put any length in it. Where are we? Tell me when we get there. It's all about this guy right here. There we go. This is catching all the reflective light here because it's got these growth tips. It is a little heavy. Take that off. Thin that out just a bit. So it's catching all the reflection of the light on that, so it looks really full right there. But there it is, Eastern Red Cedar. A lot different from before. I'll try and make sure when this gets uploaded that I get a screenshot from the before to put up. You can see the before and after, but a transformation of this tree for sure. In the future, this will come down and sit right there, so you don't see through that apex. But there's no lignification on that. We're going to let it chill for right now. That's going to fill out. Really excited about what this tree is going to do. Again, I keep getting pulled back to this side, but we'll see. Maybe there's a time for it to change, but I think for now, that's got to be it. All right. Thanks for sticking with me, tuning in. Got a great little tree here, and really excited to see how it turns out in the coming years. For now, that'll do it. See you next week, and bonsai on, y'all.